Um, so let's talk about Dyson for a second. Obviously, most improved player of the league this year. I've said that I don't think, I could be wrong, that they're going to intentionally make him the backup point guard again next year. I would assume they would try to either that's Kobe again or whoever they're going to try to sign. And so with that, I've said when he played backup point guard, I felt like Dyson was more aggressive offensively at times because I feel like now he's getting guarded by point guards and Dyson's a bigger guy. And then I would see him drive, attack the rim, and he did it from the 2 guard because he's mentioned he wants to take more offensive load just to take pressure off Trey. And he's mentioned things he wants to try to improve offensively just because he thinks he can get even better. I remember there was something you mentioned about his shooting. I think since he has long arms, the way he releases it may be a little bit more of a task to maybe get up to a certain level with shooting. Could you elaborate on that more for a minute, and then just a couple of other things that you would like to see from Dyson going into this season that you like to see him improve?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I've never coached an NBA shooter, like not even close. Yeah, coaching kids is a completely different thing, but there are times you see like all the length he gives you defensively, right? Trying to take someone with that much length and help them develop an efficient and quick shot seems hard to me, right? And there are guys like I remember like early in say Kent Bazemore's career. I mean, Kent Bazemore had ridiculous, wingspan, but he worked with the coaching staff on the different teams he played for, and he kind of tightened it up and became a reasonable shooter from the 3-point line. And so for Dyson, I think it's my guess is again admitting I'm more of a novice here and just in watching him shoot is that it seems like guys with that that kind of length that's never really had a ton of opportunity. I mean, his usage went way up this year. His role got much bigger this year and things like that. I mean, everything you hear about Dyson, of course, he's going to work on it. And I don't put anything past him adding to his game and those sorts of things. But I mean, it doesn't take an expert to see like his shot. He's a little hesitant sometimes. The release is a little slow, and those things, can they speed it up a little bit? Is that the right thing to do to speed it up a little bit? Typically teams do want to kind of speed up the release and those things. But I mean, I think it starts with just being a willing shooter. And I think as the season went on this past year, he became just, okay, if I'm open, I'm going to take the shot, and even if I miss my last 3 or 4, our system dictates that the open shooter take the shot. And that was, I think a big step for him this year. When it comes to attacking with the dribble, I still think he has he learned how to, his floater, very good. That little spin move he can get to when he's cut off from the rim, that little spin move he can get to, really good. And I think one thing he did a great job of this last year was understanding what he's good at and what he's not good at. But I still look at him and I'm like, he basically has 2 or 3 things that he's very confident in. That's not enough to be your backup point guard, right? The passing, not high enough level yet, But again, this is his first. I'm not being critical. This is his first season doing that. And when Kobe got hurt, I think we can kind of look back across the season and say to ourselves, okay, I see the value in the Hawks leaning into Dyson as the backup point guard and just giving him those reps. Well, I don't think that should be the plan next year. I don't think his game is broad enough as a creator, to do that. But will that make him better playing on the catch next year? I think it will, right? Will that create just a lot more better processing and all those reps, kind of feedback loops that he got and those things. So I definitely don't think he should be the backup point guard next year. But I think what them leaning into reps for him, totally justifiable. And I think it'll make him a better secondary offensive player next year.
Yeah, and I think too that, Dyson's a guy who I think, again, people are trying to figure out, okay, what is his ceiling? I think it's easy to say, okay, he may not have the highest offensive ceiling based on what you've seen, but obviously you know how he can impact the game defensively. But I think, Dyson, like I said, he's mentioned, like, he thinks he can really, improve some things. I know when I had Brad on, he talked about how Dyson usually shoots off 2 feet sometimes. I think when he's coming to the rim, he doesn't shoot off 1. And so he's like, that's something that he can maybe work on, just something small. But these are things I think that he definitely try to go into the gym and try to, like I said, make improvement. Because I think he really wants to if he can take any pressure off Trey, I really think he's trying to do that just so he can, because he's the ultimate team utility guy. Like, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. You need me to defend the best guy, and you need me to give you maybe 20 tonight. I'll go out there and try to do that. And I think it'll just also help for him to have the more offensive consistency as well. Because I think some people feel like his offensive game went further this year than maybe what they even thought he was going to come in going into the season. So I think that is a good sign moving forward. But let's talk about Onyeka Okongwu. A lot of people are split on him just because he's not 7 feet tall. People question, can we really survive him as our starting center? Onyeka, when he started this year, he really played well. I think he had a couple of big games. I think his 3-point shot came along. There's a lot of things that a lot of people liked. And like you mentioned earlier, Terrence Mann was playing the 4 at times. And sometimes they're playing against big front lines. So basically, Onyeka is the only guy I would say at times Quin could really trust at all to even go out there and just compete against that. And he would do an admirable job. I mean, there were some games where, I think it was the third game of the season series against Orlando. He had 30 and 10 against that front line, and so a lot of people, like I said, just don't know if the Hawks should stick with him. Now, obviously, from a net rating, positive rating perspective, when Jalen's on the floor with him, it's positive. From every number we've seen, it's been good. That's not, an issue. And like I said, he averaged 10 rebounds as a starter. Jalen averaged 10 rebounds as a starter. So you're not sitting here thinking, man, that's not a good rebounding group. But what do you think about the center position with him and just how he's came along? Because I feel like the way Quin wants to play, he would like to play 5 out, and Onyeka would give him the ability to do that. He's a good passer in terms of guys making cuts. He's not a rim protector, but I said he's a good on ball defender because he can switch, guard multiple positions. That has value as well. But like I said, people are going to be iffy about it just because, like I said, it's not 7 feet. But what do you think about and what he did as the starter this year?
I mean, I think overall he showed so much growth. After he became the starter, he looked like he's got a stronger body as well. There was some reporting around dietary changes he made. I think about midseason. I remember some of that coming out and stuff. So I thought it was a big area of growth for him. I think. And again, I always like to preface this, like, I don't intend at all to sound condescending, but if you're a Hawks fan and you just watch the Hawks, you don't say you have league pass and don't watch the rest of the league, or you only watch the TNT and the ESPN games when they're on or whatever, it can be hard to track kind of the trends that are going around the league, right? And rim protection is important, but what a lot of teams are understanding and implementing different things for is this. One is, if you're going to try to say, let's say a Rudy Gobert type or a Brook Lopez type, or those guys, Zubac may be the best example this year, right? Mm-hmm. Where we're going to sit and drop coverage, chase over screens, and just trust that guy to kind of hold up in the middle of the paint. There's 3 or 4 guys in the league that can do that, and that's about it. That's really about it, right? And what other teams are doing is, teams seem to me to have figured out, if we're going to play drop and we're going to be at the point of attack, chasing over screens, my big man is going to be dealing with ball handlers attacking downhill right at him the whole game. That's a great way to get your center in foul trouble, like really, really quick. Because even those guys, like if someone's barreling, Donovan Mitchell's barreling right at you, your Zubac, it's hard to not foul that guy because they're just all the momentum they're carrying into that. The guard is faster than you are, getting, all that sort of stuff. And so I think teams are really trying to be better at the point of attack. I think teams are leaning into switching. I think teams are leaning into getting the big to the level. And that does take more size throughout the rest of the lineup. That does take more rebounding throughout the rest of the lineup. But Onyeka's defensive skills are defending in space. He's great. This past year, he started attacking ball handlers. They put the ball in front of him. He's ripping the ball and going, And so that's, I think, what they really want to lean into. You got Jalen plus Mo plus whoever else the backup center might be that can play within that template. I think that it can work. I think people make too much of not 7 feet. Are there some matchups where you're going up against Jokic? Would it be nice to have if your backup center is a 2A, 2B construct, which some teams have, would it be nice to have a a Valanciunas type, or that can just go, okay, tonight you're going 25 minutes, because you can just go bang on him. I think if fans are like, I want to see another guy in that center group that can do some things that Onyeka can't do in those, I think that's totally justifiable view, But for me, just to say like he can't be our starting center because he's not 7 feet, I think that's way oversimplified, and it's not representative of really the trends in the league, which is to really be much stronger at point of attack, to contain drives, contain the ball, keep your center clean, and not expose your center to constant drives coming right at him the whole game. And I think that's what a lot of teams in the league are trying to build.
Yeah, and I think too, I feel like, I think people kind of, it reminds me a little bit of like Al Horford, a little bit, how when he played center and they're like, he's not a center. And, because like I said, some people just, I think, especially when you watch the Western Conference, that's where a lot of the bigs are. And I think when we go against Western Conference teams, Hawks traditionally don't do the best against the Western Conference. And so they're just like, it's because we're not big. The bigs dominate us, et cetera, et cetera. Where I say in the East, outside of like Joel Embiid, maybe an Evan Mobley, in terms of like centers. I mean, and Mobley's not necessarily a center, but that's really Jared Allen. But it's not like the Hawks have that many elite bigs that are centers that they're going against in the East. That's like, oh God, we have to have somebody for this person for the most part. Like you play Boston. I mean, Porzingis is fine, but he's not known for posting people up and dropping 30 on their head. He's more of a jump shooter, which Onyeka can handle. I think about Indiana. I mean, in the 2 last games we played, Okongwu outplayed Miles Turner. And that's a person that I've seen people like, well, why don't we try to go after Miles Turner? And I'm like, I don't know. My center just outplayed him. Like, I don't think that's an upgrade necessarily. I know some people benching DeAndre Ayton. And I'm just like, and they think he's better than Okongwu. And I'm like, I mean, if you're talking about Phoenix DeAndre Ayton, I mean, that's fair. That was a different player than what he is in Portland. It's not that he's bad. It's just I don't know if that's a crazy upgrade. Like I always say with Onyeka, would think about him is it's not like you can just get any player to fill in and now you're better just because he's a little bit taller. Like what Onyeka can bring, and the fact that, like I said, he's able to at times give you that big offensive game like he showed this year. That's very valuable just because you never know. I've always said Onyeka is someone who, even if he's getting guarded by not a big matchup, he seems to be able to win that matchup and win it pretty well because he has a nice inside game. And like I said, he's being able to shoot now. So if he's able to shoot more consistently, that just opens things up even more. So I think Onyeka, definitely deserves another year as the starter. And like I said, if Jalen's the guy, you let them play it out in the front court and see what that looks like. Because like I said, so far results when they have in previous years have been good. It hasn't been something that's like, oh, this isn't good. But
yeah, and the other part of it is that even if he gives you like average league starter production, that contract is a great value. I mean, it's a great, and it gives you a lot of flexibility to invest in other positions if you lean into Onyeka as the starter. And I think I would hope he'd be better than league average, like maybe 10-15% better than league average next year. Coming out of a season, we're like, okay, now I know what it's like to be asked to be the starter and to go out and deal with other teams' first center, for a lot of minutes in the game. Smart kid, still young, and I think he's going to kind of really build on that. But for me, for Hawks fans that might want to say like we should invest more money at the center position, they need more money invested at the forward position to me, to me. And Onyeka, I think, gives you the opportunity to take that financial investment and put it in a guard who can score, a guard or a wing who can score and create. Forwards who can defend, two-way players that could play on the second unit that could defend. And so I think, there's a couple ways to think of it. One is, no, I just want a bigger center. Okay, I hear you out, But the other is, to me, is like that value contract gives you the opportunity to invest and other things in the roster that I think are high priorities.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of, I would at that deal we're getting, I'm happy with Onyeka being the guy. And like I said, they can revisit it in a couple of years when the contract's up again. But so let's talk about the guy who makes it all kind of go. Quin Snyder. As you mentioned, some people question his rotations. Yes, we can make the argument, like in the Orlando game, why did we start the fourth quarter with Don Barlow and George Niang? Fine. That's fine. Fair. But overall, I feel like he has done a good job as the coach. I think that, again, he is big into development, teaching. That's something the Hawks really valued when they hired him, especially because maybe they knew, hey, we're going to go a little bit younger, so we need somebody who's willing to come in, help players grow, give them reps, give them opportunities. What do you think of the job Quinn has done so far with what he's been given? Because I think there is a fair argument to be made that, with injuries, and the roster not being sometimes the best constructed, he's had to just kind of work with what he's done. Does he maybe sometimes default to a smile lineup sometimes too much? I mean, you can make an argument. All of those are fair justifications. But overall, I remember it got to a point last year where every time we would lose a game, it was fire Quinn. And I said that Quinn probably won't really face any pressure to win till this next year because the expectation is we got to be a postseason team. So what do you think about the job he's done from him? And is there anything that you would like to even see Quinn improve on?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One is, and I always like to say, like, this is an area where, like, I kind of bring my experience in my professional life into this. So people don't know I run 3 consulting practices, and I work with executives every day, and those sorts of things. And building something takes time. It takes investment. It takes patience, and it takes giving people space to learn and grow through all of those kinds of activities. And that's something I encounter all the time in the day job. So for me, I feel like what was different, Lloyd Pierce fired, Nate fired, and then Nate started talking like basically saying he didn't want to be the coach anymore, kind of, at one point, basically said, I'm thinking about retiring, And so I felt like when they got Quinn, it was a really good coach to bring into the organization. But I also at the same time I understand Hawks fans are tired of feeling like, man, we're right in the middle, like we're just always like right in the middle constantly. And so I want to acknowledge that frustration and that asking Hawks fans to be a little bit more patient is maybe a big ask, in that sense. But I think if you kind of look back to what Quinn has emphasized, it's, a lot of it started with, last year, Ryan Schmidt in College Park and all the player development, all that sort of stuff. And then really bringing that around the young guys on the Hawks roster this year, all of that player development. And there is an ecosystem of many, many things that has to kind of be built up for you to create something and be a level that can be sustainable. You look at the guys they brought into College Park. They weren't, I mean, you go back 3 or 4 years ago, they had random, like a different roster every year, not building on any continuity at all, and now they have guys who are staying in that system for 2-3 years and kind of bringing them through. And one of the things that we look back at this year, and it was frustrating that the Hawks didn't have veterans when they had guys hurt this year, but to get guys to come into your G League program to do, for example, what Miami's been doing for a long time and taking a guy undrafted, having him in the system for a year or two, turning him into an actual NBA rotation player, is that when an opportunity opens up because of an injury or whatever, you got to give those guys opportunity to come up and be a part of the team and play and reward that. Otherwise, you're not going to get guys to commit to your organization and commit to those things. So that's a big thing. So the development ecosystem, I think, is fantastic. I think it's great. I think, and I think Quinn was, and I give Trey a lot of credit too, really bought into giving the young guys a lot of space to grow last year. I mean, it's going to be ups and downs when you do that, and it was with Zach at times. It was even the first, say, 5-10 games after Onyeka became the starter, and he figured it out. And I just give Quinn and Trey so much credit for how much they were willing to buy into. Okay, this is what the next step looks like. It's giving these young guys all of the reps we can, all of the playing time we can, and letting them learn from that, and understanding that's going to cap our ceiling this season, but it's going to be part of what we're building long term to build up from that. And I want to say, like, not every basketball fan cares about that stuff, and that's okay. If you just like, no, I want the team to be better right now. Fair. Like, I'm not going to try to talk you off of that viewpoint at all. It has been frustrating to see them right in the middle of the East, which it feels like it's been forever, But basically, since they come out of the Eastern Conference Finals, they've been basically kind of at that same level in the East. And so when Hawks fans are like, no, we want to take a jump. I totally get it. But I also, know from my own kind of personal background, running big organizations and things like that, that it takes time, it takes patience, it takes investment. And I think the Hawks are building this the right way to sustain it. Let's just hope that, the ownership kind of, continues to give the leaders, more space and time to kind of build this thing up. Because I think what they're building up now is healthy and constructive and will serve them long term if they can just stay committed to it.
Yeah, man, and I agree with that. I mean, like I said, development, I've always said, is a patience game. It's not always going to be sexy. It's like, they're going to have some up. It's just part of it, but like I said, I think, people, like I said, want to win. And I think, too, if the Trey timeline makes everybody nervous, I think that's why you have this anxiety of, like, we got to go. Because they keep feeling like, Trey's going to ask out, even though all indications is Trey's going to be here next year. Because Trey is always, just like I said, repeatedly came out in defense of his teammates, defense of Quinn. And I think that they're just, yes, has he made it very clear postseason is the goal? Yes, that's fine. And it's not, and a lot of people would agree if Jalen stayed healthy, people think they would be a postseason team, or at least fighting in that range for the 6th spot. So I think from that perspective, if the team stays healthy and they make some moves, you would assume, like, yeah, Hawks should probably be a postseason team next year. It's just a matter of, obviously, the season, how things go, development, how guys take a step. And I hit you with this last question. I'll let you go. One of the biggest people I think that people want to see take a step is Zach. I think, we saw the ups and downs, obviously, especially at the beginning of the year, trying to figure things out. He would have games where he would explode. I always think about the Cleveland game where he went like 7 of 7, 3 of 3 from 3, 21 in the first half, where you're seeing him like really be really good. I think that, like we've mentioned and talked about, like his ability to cut. He's, he has, a more mature game for most guys his age, just because he played in a professional system in France with older guys. And so that in the game prepared him to kind of be able to use those things here. Yes, the playing games were not great for him, and that's an experience he can learn from and grow from. And he's a guy who's going to constantly be in the gym and work. So my thing for you is what is it with Zach? Like, what do you see Zach becoming for the Hawks? And because you hear all type of player comparisons. And what is it that you feel like going into year 2, you would like to see Zach take the biggest step on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And for me, I'm eager to see, is he going to play in summer league? It might be the thing where he plays 2 games and shuts it down. Like a lot of guys at his level, or maybe I'm like, let him play all the games. Let him play point guard. Let him get all of these on ball reps he can get. Of course, not my decision to make. And and there are people who are more qualified than me to make that decision about what they do with him in summer league. And by a lot and stuff. But for me, I think he talks about a lot. One is just getting stronger, just getting, and he got a lot stronger this year. And people ask sometimes, why isn't he playing more? And I'm like, man, is he like, are they really spending a lot of time in the gym working on his body, and they just don't want to like push his, is that a thing that's going on there? The second thing that where I think I saw the most growth this year is if you kind of watched him play, some of his games in Europe, basically catch and shoot. And the NBA is a kind of a different thing in that way, that you've got to have 3, 4, 5 ways you get your 3-point shot: dribble, step back, dribble, sidestep, whatever it might be. And I thought as the season went on, you could tell he was working at becoming more diverse and having different ways to get to his 3-point shot. And I think that helped him start making more shots down the stretch. Like, closeout coming from my right, sidestep to the right, get that shot, whatever it might be. And I thought that was great. I like the fact that he was aggressive attacking the rim, even if he's not really a strong finisher yet. I think that's another thing. He's just becoming a stronger finisher at the rim. And he's great with that left hand, and if you let him get to the rim, he's going to hammer it, but there's just other times where he just not physically strong enough to deal with actual NBA power forwards trying to keep him off the rim and things like that. And the other part is, it'd be nice if he could run a simple pick and roll on the second side. And I think that's something he has to be able to do. And then just becoming a more, I think his processing is great on the catch, but once he's chased out the 3-point line and he's attacking a defense on the move, sometimes he doesn't always read the defensive rotation, turns the ball over, what it might be. But I mean, he played almost the whole season at age 19. It was his first NBA. And so to me, he exceeded my expectations. Some people might want to come and go, Glenn, he was the first overall pick. Like, I personally don't care about that, like at all, like none. Right? Can he be an all-star one day? I don't want to put that past him. Is that 3-4 years down the road? It takes more time to kind of get there. And when people ask me, I like, what do you think? It's like I want to say, like, go back and look at Jaylen Brown's first 2 seasons in the league. In year 1, he didn't play a ton. There were games he didn't play, and he was like the 3rd or 4th. I can't remember. Like, he was a top 5 pick, right? In a pretty good draft class. And so NBA teams are careful with investments like that at times. And so for me, it's the defense. He needs to become, if they want to be able to play him at the 4 when, say, it's not working for Mo, they want to go small slides out. He's got to be stronger, right? And he's got to be a better rebounder, on defense, on those sorts of things. I think his defensive processing is great. He's just got to be more physical and be a stronger defender. An offense, it's with the ball in his hands, making the right read, seeing everything, making the right decision. I think the simple playing on the catch, getting back to his 3-point shot, got a lot better this year. I think attacking a defense on the move and making the right read was up and down, and I think that's where I want to see him really kind of grow more.
Yeah, and I think too, Zach, like I said, guy who consistently works. He wants to get better, and I think those are the traits that really, I think, made the coaching staff and the team fall in love with him and why they took him, because he'll put in the work to try to get better. And I always go back to the quote he mentioned about at the beginning of the year about, he was one of the more athletic guys in France, got to the league and realized I'm not the most athletic guy anymore. So I have to expand my game to be able to be successful in the league. So it makes me feel like he understands what it takes. And I think, Trey took him under his wing. I think that's really important as well. And so I think Zach has all, like I said, the ability to be a guy who I've said could be a solid starter. We'll see if he can become an all-star. I said the biggest thing for me is that just consistency, just being more consistent per game, instead of the game where he's like, it doesn't really give you anything. And everybody has a bad game. So I'm not, saying he can't have a bad game. But the guys are like, I always like to say Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is Mr. Like, if he averages 17, he pretty much going to give you 17 or around that most games. And then obviously you have the occasional game where he might give you 30, he might give you like 10. It just, it's part of the league. If Zach could just get more consistency from how he, in terms of his output a game, I think that will help him a lot, where you have more of a trust and reliability and like, okay, I know what I'm getting from him. And like I said, we've seen that he obviously can have games where he can explode, which I think is also something that makes the front office and the coaching staff excited about, because it's almost like this is maybe something he could be. So what can we do to help him get there? So I think that'll be one of the most interesting things to see how he comes along in the second year. But Glenn, I appreciate you coming on, man. Kept you around for an hour, man. Appreciate you talking Hawks with me. Let people know where they can find you, man.
Yes, on Twitter or X, whatever you're calling it, at Willis_Glenn. You can search me on Blue Sky over there as well. Trying to post equally on both sides, because I know some Hawks fans have migrated over to that platform. ATL 29 is the podcast Kevin and Tyler and I do. I think we're gonna record after the draft lottery on Monday night, so I think episode will hit Monday night or Tuesday morning. And then if you want to look at my bio on Twitter and Blue Sky, Patreon that I have going over there, I just wrote a piece yesterday on roster balance and how that's showing up in these playoffs. If you want to go give that a read, jump in over there. So that's all the places you can find my stuff. And I'm going to be, it's been a while, I'll take a few years off. Work, day job got crazy busy for a while, but I'm trying to contribute once a month over Peachtree Hoops again. I always like to say, Wes Morton over there and the guys do an awesome job covering the team. So I want to ask, please go support those guys over there as well, because they work really hard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you going for show. Obviously, guys, if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe, like the video, leave a comment down below about anything we discuss. This podcast is available on any audio platform as well. So if you're listening to the audio, leave a 5-star rating. That would always be appreciated. But I appreciate all the love from all you guys for sure. Follow me X Twitter, Brycey_2K, for all my takes whenever stuff happens. Obviously, we'll be keeping a close eye on what happens when we get another update with the president situation, et cetera. And obviously, when that happens, I will come to you with the latest on that. But I think that's about it for us, guys. That's Glenn. I'm Bryce. See you next time.